Welcome back, everybody. This is Bats and Stats presented by ScoutStatline.com. Here I am, Brian, as always, my friend Ross R. Jensen. Tonight, we have Bobby Orban. And Bobby Orban's Twitter handle is at BigBobsCards. Now, I wanted to say BigBobsCards for a major reason, because that's what this podcast is going to be all about. It's going to be about baseball cards and how it translates into fantasy baseball. And it's actually kind of shocking once we start getting into it. Everybody's going to be like, really? Wow, that makes a lot of sense. But I want to read something that it's Bobby's Twitter handle description. And this is going to be funny because I haven't heard the stories yet, but Bobby said that there's stories behind each and every one of these. So this is going to be fun for all of us. But how it reads is, in 1996, YMCA soccer orange team, most improved player.
You don't get that by mistake.
Just straight athlete.
Yeah.
Seventh grade spelling bee runner-up, and was disqualified one game shy of the Little League World Series in 2002.
In fact,
so I thought for sure that, it was just kind of a quip, maybe a little bit of a joke. These are true stories. So let's hear them, Bobby.
100% true. Actually, what's funny is me and my wife were going through a bunch of my old stuff. My parents gave me the other day, and I found the trophy, which I haven't seen since I was like 10. Sure enough, on there, I had the year right and everything. 1996, most improved player. I was laughing when I pulled it out of there. But no, the Little League World Series, that is a true story. A team that I got on, we got disqualified. We actually technically won the state of Florida, 12 and under, and we got disqualified after the game had been finished, and the other team got to take our place in or Williamsport, wherever the next go and play and represent Florida on TV. I got that moment stolen from me.
What happened?
Yeah.
So we were playing a game, and we were up 1-0, 2-0. I forget exactly what it was. And we had a pitcher who had been pitching the whole game. Kid was lights out. And our coach decided he was going to put in, who was our closer, who usually closed games for us. And the kid took the mound between innings, and he started warming up, and he hurt himself. He pulled his groin. He pulled something. I, to this day, think that he got afraid of the moment, and he tried to kind of like back out last second. So we asked the umpire, we said, we announced him as the pitcher, but he never actually threw a pitch. Can we put our other pitcher back in? The umpire told us he would check the rule book, all that stuff, told us we were allowed to do it because he never threw a pitch. We put our other pitcher back in, won the state championship, and the other team protested. And we all had to sit there. I was 12 years old. We sat there underneath the little concession stand cover for about 3 hours waiting for a ruling. Williamsport decided that once that pitcher stepped on the rubber and put that ball in his hand, he was the pitcher, and they disqualified us.
That is wild.
Even though the umpire told us we could do it, they said it doesn't matter. It's your responsibility to know the rules yourself. So
was this like, did this get any kind of news coverage or anything?
No, this was, 20 something years ago. That I don't think anyone was paying attention. We had some parents in my game go after the umpire, because in my opinion, is it not the umpire's job to know all of the rules? Like, the fact that he told us we could do it and he was wrong, like, how's that not on him?
Right. I think that the league should defer to the umpire in that situation.
Right.
Defer to the game caller.
And I say no one wants to win like that, but this team did, petition after they lost to make a bunch of 12-year-olds sit there for 3 hours to get disqualified. So
you know what that smells like to me? That smells like the other team's coach had connections.
Yeah,
that's what it smells
right.
Like to me.
It's a conspircy theory. We need to go back and check the tape on that one.
Yeah.
Whose pockets was on.
That's wild, man. Okay, so
good news is I got to watch that team go represent the state of Florida, and they got waxed on live TV. And I felt a little bit better. That could have been me, like ruining my summer to go get smashed in Williamsport by, Tom's River.
Yeah. Wild. Do you remember the word that you missed in your 7th grade spelling contest?
I do.
To take second.
I do. The word, I don't forget anything. The word that I got wrong, and again, I'd like to file a protest on this. The word that I got wrong in the spelling bee was culinary, actually, believe it or not. Pretty straightforward. The teacher pronounced it when she, to my knowledge, from what I remember, she said the word as culinary, and I didn't even ask for a definition. And I was, COLONARY, whatever. And I got the buzzer and she was like, CUL. And as soon as she said it, I was like, that's not the word you said. And I remember being fired up about it. I wanted to win. But yep, I do remember the word I got out on.
Wow.
Wild stuff. Wild stuff. I love it.
A lot of almost victories in my young career.
Sure. That's great. So your background is straight up cards, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I do play Dynasty baseball. This is actually my first year playing.
Ooh, I like.
I got brought in by a buddy into a 16-team Dynasty league with 80-man rosters, 40 major, 40 minors. So there's some guys that are owned that are just, it's pretty deep.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Love it.
Are you in love with it?
Yeah, I do love it. It's taken me a little bit of time to catch on, like as far as like, balancing trades. Like when people offer me stuff, I'm like, the names don't mean anything to me. I think I asked Ross the other day, I have Alec Manoa, and I was like, people are offering me trades, like, do I need to just get rid of him at this point? So I still don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of guessing at it, but it's fun.
Well,
I like it.
I think you can follow the hobby page and have a pretty good start on everybody's career. I mean, it's going to be striking once we get into it. It really is. But I'm thirsty, so let's talk about our drinks. It was beer of the pod. We coined it that. We got to change it. It's drink of the pod now. We had Capri Suns. We had wine. We had. I think we had whiskey. Let's get into it. Ross, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd love to go first. So I'm a traditionalist. So I'm sticking to beer of the pod, man. Even a lambic is a beer. I'm sticking to the beer, but that's my game anyway. So tonight I have. This is, gosh, every single time I got to turn this light off. That still doesn't help very much. That's Megalodon. All right, so this is a Ninkasi beer. Probably a lot of people are familiar with Ninkasi. They're out of Eugene, Oregon. A legendary IPA is how it describes itself. All right, some say sea storms are a sign that Megalodon, protector of Atlantis, is still down there, fighting off unwelcome visitors from invading the lost city. We may never know. But we did brew this legendary IPA in her honor as a thank you for protecting all that is prized and treasured. It's bold yet balanced, fruity, with a slightly sweet, smooth finish. Meg, this one goes out to you.
That's a nice little tribute, though, huh?
But let's find out how good it is. It's strong. This is a 10% beer.
Ooh.
So here we go.
Good.
Like a double IPA.
Yeah, well, this is based on this is a riff on an Imperial IPA. That's what I know. So it's an Imperial itself. It's got to be, but I don't know anything. I don't know much else about it. So we're gonna try it out, and this is gonna be a fun podcast for me.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, it's good. It's malty like you would expect from an Imperial. It's very well balanced. I don't know if I've described most of the IPAs or drinks that way, but this is very balanced. It's not that the hops are not overpowering. It's a good solid. I mean, you wouldn't think that this is 10% ABV. That's for sure. It's good.
Gotta love that.
Bobby, please introduce your drink, man.
Mine doesn't have a cool story though. I am drinking Blanton's bourbon neat. I don't drink beer. I gave it up a couple years ago, but this is my drink of choice. It's apparently hard to find. Every time I post it, people are like, "Oh, you found Blanton's?" But in Florida, I've never had trouble finding it. It's my it's my go-to. So I've got a few bottles on reserve.
Is it from Florida?
No, it's from Kentucky.
Oh, it is a Kentucky. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, obviously. I mean, is bourbon brewed anywhere else?
So how
right.
do you describe that though? How do you describe
Ooh. Well, I mean, I guess I gotta drink it for
There
that. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. I've been drinking it for years. It's the only bourbon I drink anymore. I used to be like I drank Woodford for a while. I bounced around on a couple, but I bartended for about 15 years.
Mhm.
And I bartended at a couple of Marriott's down here, like beach resorts. And I had a customer one time, and he was doing like a bourbon tasting, and we had a bottle of Blanton's, and he bought me a shot of it, and I was like, yeah, I like bourbon, but and he was like, you have to try this. And I've been hooked ever since. It's the only thing I drink now. It's phenomenal. It's incredibly smooth. I think it's nothing crazy. It's like $100 a bottle, I think. Not like.
Well, that's a
but
nice bottle.
Yeah.
That's a nice bottle. It's not
Yeah.
crazy, but it's a nice
It's not
bottle.
like exponentially more expensive than like a Woodford or like some of the other stuff, but it's my favorite. The cool thing about it is that oh, I should check the bottle which one I have, but so the stopper on top is a horse, like a guy riding a horse, a jockey riding a horse, and it has a letter on it. I think the one I have right now is B. And the idea is that you try to, if you collect every letter, if you can find it, it actually spells out Blanton's. There's like a B, an L, an A, an N, and if you get all of them, they'll send you like a custom like wood, like a real nice decorative piece that you put them all in, and all the horses are in different poses, like they're racing. It's kind of like a, people are always like trading. I'm like, oh, you have an A, like let me get the L. It's kind of like a cool thing they did.
I'm starting to make a connection between the card collecting.
I'll collect anything.
I love it. So, if you don't mind, whereabouts in Florida are you?
Naples, southwest Florida, straight across the state from Miami.
Okay, all right.
We're like
Cool.
the west coast of the east coast of Florida is more like New York side.
How far of a drive is it to the beach for you?
5 minutes.
It's a ways.
5 minutes.
Oh, 5. No, it's not.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Man.
But yeah, the east coast of Florida is a lot more like West Palm Beach, and Miami is more like people from New York. It's like the Northeast comes right down the east side, and then the west coast of Florida is a lot more Midwest. Most of the people here are originally from Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin. So it's the nicer side of the state.
I like it.
Yeah, that's good insight.
Yeah.
Fellas, I got a new one. I found at the gas station tonight, and it's from Seattle. It's Bode High Zaffa. It's got a great label. It says, "We like beer. Darn tasty IPA. Please refrigerate. Warm beer sucks." And then it's got one hell of a write up on the backside with a jackalope on it, and that's why I bought it. I haven't seen a jackalope in forever, man. Like, remember when we were kids? Jackalopes were everywhere.
Yeah.
It was a huge deal, so that's why I bought it. I don't think I'm going to read the whole thing tonight, unless you guys want me to. Yeah, I will read it. All right. It came from Georgetown. Similar to our other neighborhoods on Seattle's periphery, Georgetown got its rebirth when creative industrial folks went out looking for cheap rental space to start their dream, and poof, Georgetown became a magnet for some of the coolest people in Seattle who don't think they're cool. Here's a confession. Georgetown Brewing Company's first name wasn't Georgetown Brewing. It was Short Round Brewing, named after the little sidekicks in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Roger Baialos, co-founder, and I were pretty clueless about Georgetown, but we renamed our brewery when we realized how lucky we were to be laid here. Yes, Georgetown has changed over the years. Sometimes we complain about the traffic and the parking, but all of us agree that neighborhood still has a soul, and community is still a word that means a lot here. If you really want to discover Georgetown, belly up to one of the local bars, order a pint, and say hello to your neighbor. If you can't make it here, we think the darn tasty beer in your hand is the best thing. Co-founder.
I like that.
So, yeah.
I like that. It's got
Nice
like a
little story.
small town vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
I've
cool
actually
with
never been to Seattle. I've been meaning to go out there.
that. We were just there.
We went for opening
Beginning
day.
of the
Yeah.
year.
Did you?
I don't have much to say about it other than it's a darn good IPA. It tastes like an IPA, but it's really nice and smooth. It's not overly hoppy. Like you can get some that are just earwax. This is good. This is really good.
Nice.
Nice.
Well, I can't wait to get into this episode because I think we're of the same mind. Like, I don't want to be dismissive about what anyone else is doing because everybody else is doing great work out there. But I do want to say there's something awry. You know, there's something that's being missed. And I think that's where we're trying to fill the gap is being like, look, these guys are good. You know, take a look at them. And then, like, you know, everybody fill in the gaps around that, but we're just saying that these guys are good. Take a look at them. And I think that that's what you're bringing to the table on the card side of things. I hope that that's what we're bringing to the table on the fantasy side of things.
Let's jump into it. Let's get into the hobby advantage. And this is basically Bobby's baby.
And Ross's. And
Ross's,
yeah.
but like the idea of it and the
So
core.
I gotta say this. There's three of us that were really behind this thing, and I want to make sure that we cover everybody involved. This is me and Bobby talking like about there being a gap. There being a gap between the understanding and the value of players. So we had a lot of conversations about that, and then we were trying to fill that gap. Like, how do we do that? Well, we can marry up what we're doing with Scout the Statline with, I guess, with the card world. But how do we do that? You know, the best way to do that is, well, what's the price of these cards? You know, and for me, like, this is a different world because I'm not very familiar with the card collecting world, and there's all these different types of cards, and I didn't, you know, for me, I was like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what should be valued at what. That's where Bobby's expertise came in incredibly valuable. And then we brought in another person at MLB Alchemist who was able to bring in the card pricing aspect of this. And I mean, this thing is like a machine.
Yeah.
It's a machine at this point. We got every day, the stats are being updated every day. Pretty soon, every day, all of the card prices are going to be updated. And I don't think you can find that anywhere else. Doesn't matter where you go.
I've never seen anything like it.
It doesn't exist in the space. It does not exist. We have pioneered this.
Yep.
Other people will come up with imitations of it, but they're light years behind.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like you said, the gap that we're trying to fill. I feel like when I got into cards, I got into prospecting for cards. You know, like that's why I prospect. That's why I watch minor league baseball games. You know, because I'm trying to find the next guy. And then there's, you know, a bunch of people who prospect for dynasty baseball. So I see a lot of prospect rankings. I follow a lot of you know, dynasty rankers. And then one day I happened to, when I was on Twitter, come across the Scout the Statline rankings. And I remember seeing them and being like, wow, these are so much more, they seem so much more like the rankings that I would use as a card collector. Like I remember, I think the first post I ever saw from Scout the Statline was something on the lines of, you know, now that I forget who it was that I graduated, but like, is Evan Carter the new #1 prospect? And I remember seeing it and being like, wow, that's like something I would say, and people would call me crazy for it, you know, like months ago.
Yeah.
So like when I realized that the Scout the Statline rankings seem to be a lot more correlated to like whose cards are being collected than most typical, you know, dynasty rankings. And yeah, I was like, we need to find a way to marry these two things, because like you said, you know, there's like this big Venn diagram of people prospecting for dynasty, people prospecting for cards, and that middle part is huge, and no one has found a way to like bring those things together, which is what that's what made me reach out to Ross in the first place. I was like, how has no one figured out how to combine, you know, dynasty rankings and card values into like one space so that they can be accessed by both of these groups, you know? So that's kind of like how this thing started. We started DMing each, and that's when he brought up, he was like, people DM me all the time asking about card prices, you know, because I think a lot of people want to know, you know, whose card should I be buying? And other than, you know, most of the people who put out rankings for prospects are for Dynasty Baseball. So they reach out to the Dynasty guys and they're like, hey, should I buy this card? And like Ross said, he's like, I don't know, you know. Yeah. But he mentioned how often he gets those questions. And I knew that it was something that, you know, like we need to find a way to marry these ideas. And that's what we did with it. Yeah, it's a huge opportunity. And, you know, just finding out, you know, who's overpriced, you know, who's undervalued, and, you know, all the stuff that you need to know in Dynasty Baseball too. You know, you want to get on guys before people know who they are. I wouldn't endorse something that I don't believe in. You know, my ego's not that big. I'm not going to say it works just because I helped make it. But I was actually shocked, you know, just on our like first trial run, like how much I liked it. I was screaming, you know, when this most recent release, the 2023 Bowman came out, I had posted rankings and I was a lot higher than a lot of people on Carlos Jorge. And I had been screaming his name from rooftops. At one point, I tweeted about him so many days in a row. I've had people comment on my tweets and be like, will you shut up about Carlos Jorge? Like, I'm trying to buy some of his cards before everyone figures out who he is. And so the first time we sat down to do our hobby advantage tool, me and Prospect Alchemist, we sat down and we listed, you know, we had like 450 prospects, which product you can find each guy's cards in, which is, you know, information a lot of people ask me, like, which product am I even buying if I want this guy's card? And then we pulled all of the prices for all these cards and we just put them all on a sheet and we handed them over to Ross. And Ross, you know, combined it with his rankings and made up a formula that's above my pay grade.
The buy-sell index.
The buy-sell index.
Buy-sell index.
And he was like, I'm going to combine the prices you give me with, you know, what our rankings say a prospect's going to be ranked, and it's going to give us a buy-sell index. And I mentioned Carlos Jorge because I was skeptical that the two ideas would be married so well. Like a lot of times I'll see prospects that are ranked high in Dynasty that's cards don't sell well for a number of reasons. But the first time we gave him, I think there was like 80 something hitters in the 2023 Bowman that had, you know, their first prospect auto. So it was a pretty big list. And he put in his formula and he spit out the first one, and the guy with the highest buy rating was Carlos Jorge. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's it. Don't touch it. This thing
works. It works.
This is it. This is golden.
It's so simple. I mean, it's all it is combining our ranks with market prices. That's all it is. And I mean, it works like a charm. I think this one column of data, it's a column of data, the buy-sell index, which I've heard referred to as the BSI from people that use it. The BSI is potentially revolutionary, I think. I mean, this thing is changing the game. It could change the game for you if you're an interested card collector. You know, I'm still trying to dip my toes in it because I don't know what I'm doing. But the BSI puts you in the right direction. It points you into the direction of who is it that is worth buying and selling, and why should I be interested in doing that right now? And there's a lot of players in there that they'll be controversial, you know. They are like the guys that are the sells. Like we got Ellie De La Cruz, who's a major sell right now. He's not the top of the list. He's not the highest sell because he's our number 2. He was our number 2 prospect. So he's a very good prospect, and that's not what we're saying. But we're saying his card value was so high compared to anything else in the space. You'd be crazy not to consider it. Is
100%.
that wrong to say?
No,
Because out there,
what's
if
kind
you
of funny
say
is,
this on Twitter, you're gonna get
oh man,
chastised. You're gonna get it. You know,
I get it from people all the time. I actually tweeted it was a couple days ago. And you know, a lot of people have cards. I have cards in my personal collection that I collect them because I like the players, you know, like I'm not trying to make money on them. But I
right?
also have a separate section of cards whose sole purpose is, you know, making money. And I tweeted the other day that if your card collection is geared towards making money and you have an Ellie De La Cruz card in your possession that's not for sale, you're doing it wrong. Like, and I had a lot of people come after me because they were like, you know, he's going to be a star. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. When it's just like in Dynasty, when you get to the point that you can get so much. Like I saw someone say the other day that you know, like Ronald Acuna and Shohei Ohtani and someone else were the only players they take 1-for-1 in a dynasty trade for Ellie De La Cruz. And I was just looking at it and I was like, take it, you know, like
Why would
you're crazy not to.
I mean,
Like,
we're talking about this. We're talking about this, and on Twitter, there's been a lot of back and forth just the other day between some of our folks that we know pretty well and other folks about Ellie De La Cruz and his value, and the argument coming from some people that we know is like, if you're going to get a top 10 guy, then you do it. Like, you do it without thinking twice, because you don't know what the future value of him is. It could be a top 10 guy,
but you're getting a top 10 guy already.
You're trading it for something that is known, for something that is unknown.
yep.
And on top of that, like, so we've gotten some backlash, people saying it's not that way. The value is not that. It's not what you guys are saying it is. But if you look at the buy sell index on this thing that we created, it absolutely is. I mean, his cards are going for more than twice what we think the number one prospect is. Well, I say we. You had Ellie as your number one prospect, but
I did.
Bobby, but Jackson Holiday, they're going for more than twice his cards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that means he's an absolute sell. It doesn't matter if you think he is anything less than the number one prospect and he's twice as good as the next best guy, then you gotta be considering.
Yeah, I haven't looked at Ellie in the last couple of days, but I know that shortly after when he got called up and he got when he got hot, his cards kind of spiked again after the call up. I think the last time I looked, his a PSA 10 of his first refractor auto was going for like $2,200, and Junior Camanero's card, same card, goes for about $700. So the market has decided that Ellie De La Cruz is 3 times as good as Junior Caminero, and I'm not buying that. I refuse to believe that. You know, he's double the price of Jackson Holiday. He's triple the price of Junior Caminero, and I mean, I don't know how you could warrant, you know, buying that. I know he's exciting, but the hype that people get. I saw a tweet the other day and someone was like, if you're drafting a team right now, are you taking Ellie De La Cruz or Ronald Acuna number 1 overall? And I commented and I was like, anyone who says Ellie De La Cruz should be blocked from the internet forever. Like, how do you even take that stance after, you know, 1 month in the MLB? It's crazy.
Well, I mean,
you know, I like him. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him.
Opinions are good, and they're all to be, you know, worthwhile taking into consideration. But like, yeah, come on, come on.
I mean, Acuna, you can't put him in an Acuna conversation. That's crazy to me.
But I think everybody they see the blue sky of a guy like this. The blue sky is enormous. The blue sky is Fernando Tatis.
Right.
That's what it is, right?
And that's what it is with cards. I mean, and from what I've talked to you about, Dynasty Baseball is the same way. The people just, when people see that power speed combo, it's like nothing else exists. You know, they get so wrapped up in that, like he could go 40-40. They get this idea in their head, and it's like, do they care that if he's going to strike out 50% of the time? No, you know, they get these, they get so, you know, and it's like, they don't care if he bats 200. But if he's going to hit home runs and steal bases, that's exciting to them. And I know that in Dynasty that's true as well, but in cards it's even more true. Guys like Jackson Churio, I mean, those were like him and Ellie were like 1A and 1B in the card world until Ellie got called up. If people can't get enough of that power speed combo, and I think that's why our tool has, like we get buys like Tyler Black and Carlos Jorge, and it's the guys that we feel, maybe not I shouldn't say could have those tools. Tyler Black's never going to have Ellie De La Cruz's tools, but he might be better in other areas that, and right. When his card's $11 and Ellie De La Cruz's is $500, like, I feel like there's just a value play, and it's usually not on the guys that are, ranked highly.
That's exactly what it comes down to is, and this is true in Dynasty baseball or fantasy baseball in general. It's all about perceived value versus real value. And if what you can do is trade perceived value for real value every day, you win. You win in the game. And that's what the buy-sell index is all about.
Right.
And I can't say, I'm not going to go out there and say the buy-sell index is never going to fail. But I will say it's a tool that can help you win in that. And I know this because I've been doing this for a while, been doing it successfully and not at anyone's expense. That's not my intent. It's just trying to do better, trying to get better.
Right.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And another thing with the other problem with like the card space with those guys is that, not everyone wants to spend $1,000 on a baseball card, and when you get these guys where you're like, oh, I want a Jackson Holiday auto, or I want an Ellie De La Cruz auto, like when you look at the fact of what you can get, and it's just like in Dynasty baseball, I can, if you're giving me the option of buying, 50 Tyler Blacks instead of, one, Jackson Holiday, understanding, the value cap of how much can Jackson Holiday or how much can Ellie De La Cruz possibly go up. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand, especially, I'm sure it's the same in Dynasty, but in cards, like there is a ceiling on these guys, how good do they need to be for them to have more value than they have at this moment, and that's kind of like, I think right. when we first ran the hobby tool and I put in all the card prices, I think out of the top 50 prospects on Scout the Statline, there was only like 4 guys that had a negative buy rating that had, were a sell on our tool. And I messaged Ross after I put all the numbers in, and I was like, the only top 50 prospects that our tool thinks are a sell right now are, I think it was Ellie De La Cruz, Jason Dominguez, Marcelo Meyer. I listed the names and he was like, yeah, like I agree with all of those. They're all names that just like, like people and they're the same way with cards. Like I can't advise someone to spend, as much money on a Jason Dominguez card as a Jackson Holiday card. I just, I'll never do it. So I think our tool is good in that way, that the guys that it said are strong buys and the guy that it said are strong sells, like I agree with the list, so that's why I definitely trust the tool and what it's putting out.
It's 100% about hype versus production.
Oh,
that's what it comes down to. Hype versus production.
And that's another thing that that I've tried to tell people, that are kind of like new to cards in the past. You would think it makes sense to people in their mind that the more productive you are, the more value your cards have, right? But it's way more hype driven than it is production driven. And granted, if you're productive, your hype is going to go up. But at the end of the day, the hype is what sells the cards,
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really matter if you're productive. It doesn't. As long as people are talking about you and they're excited, that's what makes your card value go up.
Just take card out of those conversations and enter fantasy baseball, and you just hit exactly what fantasy baseball is.
Right. The delay between people realizing a prospect is good, like the window is so big. Like I've been, I don't have enough followers to, change the card market. But like Carlos Jorge could do what he's doing for a full season before his cards start going up, because it's going to take until MLB.com lists him as one of the Reds' top 10 prospects for anyone to know who he is. I'm sure it's the same way in Dynasty. Like you get big buying windows because I feel like most people don't really know what they're looking at. So Bowman does 3 releases every year. They do Bowman, and then they do Bowman Chrome, and then they do Bowman Draft, which is mostly the draft picks. And all 3 of those releases have different players with their first card in it. So it's kind of confusing, and that's why I included that on the tool. If you go to the Hobby Advantage tool, each player, it will show you which release you can find their cards in, because I know that's confusing. There's guys like Jason Dominguez who have 12 prospect cards. He's been in, he's been in every release for the last 3 years. But it's all about finding that first prospect, and it is very confusing. So
I have it pulled up right now, and Jackson Holliday's card is going to be a 2022 Bowman Draft card.
So what happens is Bowman. So Bowman Draft is almost always draft picks from the draft. But what Bowman will do is every year they'll hold out. It's usually the number 2 overall pick. They usually pick and choose about like 3 to 4 first round picks, and they don't give them a card in Bowman Draft, and they put them in next year's Bowman to try to like pump that product up a little, so it's not so bottom heavy. So they'll just pick random guys. I think the number 2 pick, and then they choose the rest of them. And then Bowman. So Bowman is a combination of guys who are held out from draft, and then some international signings. And then Bowman Chrome, which will be our next one, is almost all complex league, Dominican Summer League. It's all like 17-year-old, 18-year-old, and that's a fun product because it's not usually as expensive. Because Bowman Draft, like everyone knows the day that card comes out, who Jackson Holliday is. Bowman Chrome, you can find some guys down in the Dominican Summer League, and it's usually a cheaper release because it doesn't have the big names, but it's one of the more fun products to open for me.
So Emmanuel Rodriguez is number 1 in the BSI. Belt rushing, Carlos Jorge, and then Tyler Black, Chase Majoroff, and then my guy Cole Keith.
Oh, another one I love. See that homer hit yesterday? Woo.
They're rocket
today,
ships, man.
Too. Didn't Cole Keith hit a home run today?
I believe so.
He hit another one today?
Yeah.
I think he hit one today in AAA.
Yep.
And I don't think we have one of those, do we yet?
No. Well, it's pending. I bought one that the guy's waiting to get back from being graded. But no, yeah, Colt Keith, he's another one.
We'll see.
But he's another one. So he's one of the reasons that I love. So the draft products, you get the Jackson Holidays, you get like the top 5 picks, but the draft product I like because there's so many of those 4th, 5th round high school bats that no one knows when the products come out, like the Colt Keiths and everyone's buying the Zach Veens and the Robert Hassels and the Tyler Soderstroms. Like no one knows who Colt Keith is. And that's why I love that's part of the reason I love the Chrome, because I like getting the young Dominican Summer League guys, but the draft, there's always those. I think it was the same year, actually. 2020 draft was Sagisi and Colt Keith they're both in that class. And no one even talks about them because it's, the Jordan Walker class. But
and it's a shame. It's a shame because those 2 guys are some of my highest risers in my mind.
Right. Evan Carter is getting up there. He got a lot of hobby love last year. His card prices are pretty high, but he's, rightfully so.
But he's still 6th. He's still 6th in the buy sell index ranks.
Right.
Which does not exist. There's no ranks for it, but like he's 6th in those numbers. Like that's a guy you want to buy still.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge believer. I think Evan Carter is way underrated.
And I tweeted about him the other day, and I don't think he's popped up on our thing yet because his cards are were overpriced from day one. So I don't think he's popping off as a big buy right now. But I tweeted the other day, I saw a couple videos in high A of Roman Anthony, and I'm already in on him being the next Evan Carter because he's like, I saw him hit an Oppo home run, and it's like, man, everything about him, he just gives me. He's got that Evan Carter vibe, and he's got the other day he went like 2 for 2 with like a homer and like 3 walks, and I was like, yeah, that's what I love to see.
I've certainly seen a lot of buzz about him. But
Yeah.
let's talk about guys that ourselves. This is an unpopular topic.
Yeah.
Unpopular to talk about guys that you should get rid of. We're not going to talk about Ellie De La Cruz because we already talked about him.
He is number 4
Who do
on
you
the
think,
BSI.
Bobby? Who do you think are the top sells? Like who would you sell right now? Who are you cutting bait with?
I mean, I have one in particular, but it's mostly because I've been selling him his whole career. But Jason Dominguez for me. His card prices are insane, and I mean he gets the Yankee tax. You know, the Yankees and the Red Sox players, their cards are always jacked up. But man, when Jason Dominguez's cards came out, people were talking about him like he was Mickey Mantle.
Yeah.
And he's not there. He might get there, but the card prices haven't gone down a crazy amount. I think his base autos are still a few $100s. I want to say they're as much as Jackson Holiday's, and to me that's like blasphemy. That's absurd.
We were big sells on Jason Dominguez prior to last year. He kind of redeemed some faith in us a little bit, but I don't know. I think I'm good with that personally. The hype is still a little too high, and he's batting like 200 this year or something.
Yeah. He's showing his old ways rather than what happened last year, which is sad because he was actually one of my breakout candidates in the offseason. I was touting him. I was like, finally, the bias, we can get rid of it. The New York bias, and we can get rid of it. We don't have to have this huge expectations on him, and he can, start being a ball player rather than the next Messiah. And it's not working out so far, but we did a lot of year left.
I mean, I feel bad. I feel bad for him. The hype that he got when he signed was unfair. I mean, I don't know how he was to live up to that.
I mean, you sort our tool by the highest average first auto price. He comes in third. He's a third highest price player.
Behind who? Ellie and Jackson Holiday?
Behind Ellie and Jackson Holiday. That's insane. It's nuts. You're right. You're right. He's got a negative 3.6. Sell him. Sell him.
I would. I mean,
sell Jason. Sorry.
Find a Yankees fan who still believes. I know there's a lot of them.
There's a big name on here in the BSI. He's probably 30 from the top of the lowest negative card prices and stuff like that. It's Drew Jones, and he's at -5, but his card is 198.
Oh, it was when 2023 Bowman came out, he was in his own tier. He was about double the price of Junior Caminero and Spencer Jones, who were 2 and 3 in that release.
I think that's another reflection of the prospect rankings too, because he was massively high in fantasy baseball prospect rankings. So the card's reflecting that, and now the downturn is reflecting that on both sides.
You know what's funny is I actually ended up trading the pick, but in my dynasty league, I was given the 3rd pick, and I was going to draft Drew Jones over Jackson Holiday. I was on the Drew Jones hype train when he got drafted. I hadn't found Scout the Statline yet. That's why. But luckily I traded that pick away. But yeah, man, I mean, his hype is still up there. So I'm still rooting for him. But yeah, his card prices are pretty crazy.
I'm with you. I love Andrew Jones, and I hope Drew Jones is awesome. I'm just very data driven, and I saw what Jackson Holiday was doing, and I got to stick with that. I'm going to throw this out there. If you're not using this tool, you're going to be left in the dust.
Yeah.
Everybody that is going to win the game. And that's what this is all about.
And my favorite thing about it, much like, your dynasty rankings, is that it's data driven. So it's like, I can sit there on Twitter and be like, these are 10 prospects whose cards I would buy, but I'm just a guy, that would involve you trusting my opinion to buy who I think is going to be good. But with this tool, we put in how much cards are going for, all of that data for their stats and their peak projections update daily. And then the tool just tells you, and the fact that it changes on a daily basis is, I mean,
It's a
I've
game
never seen
changer.
anything like it for sure.
It's a game changer.
I love the tool because it gives you another reference point to say this is a different industry is telling you that these guys can be really good, or vice versa, they can be really bad.
Yep.
There's names in the top 50 that I am just in love with. And the buy sell index is there. It gives you all the hit, the home run, the stolen bases, your averages, all that. Everything's right here in front of you. And it gives me another reason to be in love with the prospect.
But to your point, Brian, that's something that me and Ross talked about at the beginning. He was saying the same thing, and he was like, I feel like you see, these auto prices, and it almost like confirms everything that you're saying in your head. Like, like maybe you thought someone was too overvalued in Dynasty, but then you look on the tool and you're like, wow, look how much his card sells for. There's clearly another huge group of people who think that this guy is that good.
It is the only way conceived by man to this point that we are living in right now, where you can see how other people view a player, how other people value a player. When you're trying to trade a player, you're like, I'm not really sure if this guy thinks this guy is worth much or not. Like, I don't know how he perceives him. We just created a tool for that. Like it shows you how people perceive their value because there's a dollar sign associated with it.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to trade Tyler Black for Ellie De La Cruz. Like, we know that in the real world, but we have a price point on there too. It's $25 compared to $730.
Right. And to your point, like when you sorted it by dollar rankings, I would assume that it's true in Dynasty that someone out there will pay in Dynasty top 3 prospect money for Jason Dominguez. There's someone out there who will do that. And it might sound crazy to you, sounds crazy to me, but I mean, the card prices confirm it, that there are people who think that that's who he is, So it's just nice to get that like reassurance.
I love it. It's a fun tool for me that I'm not gonna. I'm saying this very gently because I get roped into some things, man. And when I dive into something, I dive into it hard. So this could be something that's going to be my next one where I'm just like, hey, wife, I need $1,500 because I got to go buy 35 Tyler Black cards and 25 Colt Keiths.
My wife has accused me before of going. She's like, you go real hard into hobbies for like 6 months, and then all of a sudden it's something new, and I'm like, yeah, I just like to bear it. But cards is will always stay in the front there.
It's really fun for me. It's very, very fun, and I know I don't want to say fun as a negative, because this is something that you make probably a really decent chunk of change, and maybe there's people that are making a lot of chunk of changes. And so I don't want to say fun as a discredit, fun as in this is sweet.
I mean, what I mean? It's fun to me. And there are people like I don't go above my means. I don't try to buy, anything crazy. There are people who gamble big money on this, but the call, like, for example, one of my favorite things about the cards, and I think Dynasty is probably the same way, is people love the the high school bats. Like, they love the guys that get drafted out of high school. And I always think it's so funny when you get knocked, like Manzardo and Kauser and those guys will get knocked in the card world, and people will be like, oh, well, he's 22 years old and he's still in the minors. But then they invest all this money into guys like Jason Dominguez, who also don't end up making it to the majors until they're, so it's like all you're doing is just burning a hole in your pocket for 4 years. Like, why would I not buy, Kauser and Manzardo and be able to sell them in 3 months, 2 months when they get called up, as opposed to holding those 18-year-old kids, for 4 years waiting for that time to come. And Jason Dominguez is a perfect example of that. I think when people bought Jason Dominguez, they were under the impression that he was going to be in the league by the time he was 19.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they were paying so much for his cards.
I think what is our connective tissue right now between all of us, probably between you, Bobby, between us, Brian, maybe I think you actually agree with this, is that we are anti-hype guys. We're the guys that are against the hype, and we tend to go the other direction because the hype is always going to be like, this guy is going to be so great. He's going to be awesome. And I don't want to speak for you guys, but I know my initial reaction is usually like, well, let's take a step back. And then you observe what happens. And if it is a match, then you're full in. Like, I know I'm full in. I'm like, okay, let's go. If it's not a match, I'm stepping out. I'm out.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I'm a notorious hype hater. I get accused of it all the time. Why you always hating on Ellie Dela Cruz? Why you hating on? And I mean, it was the same. Jason Dominguez, I hated on him hard when his cards came out. And another, who's another one for me? And I admit when I'm wrong, but do you know who's hype? I can remember his card getting released. And I remember thinking, this guy is so hyped and there's no way he's going to be good, was Blaze Jordan. I was a big Blaze Jordan hater when his cards dropped.
Oh yeah, he had massive hype.
Yeah,
he had massive hype. Yeah,
and it's like the same. I remember him. I remember the 2021 Bowman cards coming out, and Blaze Jordan gets his card, and everywhere I look, people are like, "Oh, I'm buying Blaze Jordan card." Do you see that video of Blaze Jordan on YouTube?
He's a YouTube superstar.
And as soon as I saw that, I was like, "This guy's gonna be terrible." I was like, "I was a big sell." So I'm the same way. I like to. I'm always auto. Like, if I see everyone hyping someone up, I'm like, I'm out. I admit I was wrong on Blaze Jordan. He's a lot better than I thought he was going to be.
More complete hitter than you thought.
I don't know if that's a testament to the Red Sox ability to develop or if he did that on his own, but I thought he was going to come in and strike out, just an insane amount. And he's holding his own. He looks good.
So you got to tell me you saw our Blaze Jordan player eval in the offseason or something.
No.
We had this exact conversation. Me and Brian, who's now below me here, get in your spot. We had this conversation about Blaze Jordan almost to a T, where Brian was saying it was just the hype machine. He thought he was going to just be a guy that fell on his face, maybe hit some dingers and struck out at a time, and we were surprised because he was a different player than we thought, and a more complete hitter. We both came to that agreement.
I was so dead wrong on him. It was incredible how dead wrong I was on him and how much better of an actual baseball player he really is. Because you mentioned it before, man, the YouTube videos, all I seen was you were going to strike out 80% of the time, man.
Oh, man. And it really was. And that's kind of what drew me to Roman Anthony, because the first time I saw him play in high school, I felt the same way about him. Like, I saw him hit and I was like, man, this kid has speed and power, but I don't know, what that K rate's going to look like. And the Blaze Jordan almost gave me faith. Like, I was like, well, I thought that about Blaze Jordan, and the Red Sox did something. So if they can do that with Roman Anthony, who's a much better athlete, I was like, if they can make it the same thing click with him. And then the second he came into A-ball and I saw he was walking more than he was striking out, I was like, bye, Roman Anthony, all the stock I can get. So right now it's looking like I'm right on that, but I was wrong on Blaze Jordan. I've been wrong on a lot of guys before. It happens.
I wanted to put that in there because Ross did mention we talked about it like hardcore in the off season. Man, I was dead wrong on that. He's a good ball player.
Yeah, but not just you. Like, he was a hype guy.
Yeah.
We were just talking about how we're anti-hype people, and so it was the same thing for me. It's like I withdraw from guys like that until I see them prove something, and he's starting to show, like, he's just showing he's a good hitter.
You know who's another one who, I don't know why my brain does this, but I go by Bowman releases because I know I can remember who everyone was looking for in each release. But 2022 Bowman, which is the release with Ellie Dela Cruz and James Wood, I can remember when that card release dropped, and Khalil Watson is who everyone
Khalil
thinks.
Watson.
Yeah.
I was sucked into the
The
hype.
Khalil Watson hype was
Yep.
insane. And
You
he's
know
another one
what?
that-
Oh man, one of the most legendary moves probably in my career is Khalil Watson. I had Khalil Watson on my team, and I traded him for James Wood last season, beginning of the year when I saw it was not working well for me, and I got skewered on the internet for it.
oh, people love
Skewered.
Khalil Watson.
They were like, how can you be so reactive? And I was like, that is what I do.
Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. I'd like to give Bob a good shout out here for being a part of the Hobby Advantage. Your Twitter handle, good sir,
BigBobsCards.
and anything else that you want to kind of plug for the Hobby Advantage.
Yeah, I would just say, anyone who hasn't seen it yet needs to go on Scout the Statline and check it out. It's really tough. We talked about it, on end here, but it's really tough to put into words how valuable of a tool it really can be. A lot of people getting started in cards. They don't know where to start, which products to buy, which players to buy. And I think we really have a tool that, like Ross said, no one's done this before. It's really the first of its kind. And I think that it's a monster, and it's worth everyone checking out for sure.
Yep. I agree. Everybody should join the Scout Statline. Check out all the tools that we have on there, because there's a pile of them.
Oh, there's so much good stuff on the site.
And the Hobby Advantage is right at the top of that list, guys. So thank you so much. Everybody tuned in. We'll see you again.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
See you guys.